You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Bonaparte, and Keep Canada Weird is the venue in which my pal Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore the more offbeat news stories that played out across Canada over the past week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on February 27th of 2024, Aaron and I talk about travel and sex. We hear about the shameless man who's been squatting in a dorm room of a BC flight school ever since he dropped out 2 years ago. We're going to choose sides in the High River Horse War, and we'll trip over ourselves while attempting to understand the Toronto Glory Hole trickster incident. Let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport, we are back, baby.
We're back and better than ever.
And it's not like we've been far, but last week we did release an episode that was a bit different than typical. We didn't review the past week's weird news stories. We instead went far back in time. Not this week. This week we have to unpack one of the weirder weeks in Canadian history. But before we get into the stories we're going to be talking about, I want to hear about you. What's new? What have you been up to? I miss you.
Oh, I miss you too. What have I been up to? Just the usual, a lot of the usual. The weather has always been a thing, but it's kind of calmed down recently. I'm going to be making a move here.
Whoa, what do you mean?
Well, I'm going to be selling my home.
What? And moving where?
I'm moving into an apartment just for, on kind of a temporary basis.
Okay. This is a weird intro because I'm learning this now.
I thought I talked to you a bit about this.
Never mentioned it. No,
I did when the idea was in its infant stage.
Okay.
But
okay. Admittedly, my memory is at the cusp of disability, so I'm not surprised that I forgot about it. But okay, well, that's exciting. So I guess what you're saying is if there's anyone out there in Keep Canada Weird Nation who wants to own a piece of Keep Canada Weird history, contact Aaron's real estate agent.
Yeah. Once nothing is listed yet, nothing is ready to be listed yet.
Yeah. So don't everyone call right away.
No. I'll let you know on the show when the offers can come flooding in. So over the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to kind of get the house show ready.
Okay.
And then and the apartment, thankfully, is very close by. So I'll be able to keep an eye on the house. And
no effect on the show like this. You can still continue your important work here.
Well, for the people that watch the live recording on Tuesday nights on a regular basis, they'll notice my background will be different.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's not a filter that I'll be using. That'll be an actual real new background.
Okay.
A different wall. Yeah.
Well, this is very exciting. All right. So Keep Canada Weird Nation, there will be a real estate opportunity popping up in Cape Breton. And if you like helping people move, there may be some opportunities for that as well in the new year.
In the new year?
That just seems like I know it's not next year that you'd be doing it, but that just seems like the right thing to say.
No. I'm moving the end of this week.
Oh, you tell me today. All right. Well, I'm excited for you. I'll be home soon and I'll help you. I'm coming home.
Yeah.
This is a very quickly took a turn into like a personal conversation. Let's get back to the listeners. We have some voice memos we need to hear.
Okay.
Are you done ranting about your move?
I didn't think I was ranting, but I didn't realize that you were so new to that information. I apologize.
Absolutely new. Well, you live in Cape Breton, you're selling a house and moving to another part of Cape Breton. So let's go to a listener in Cape Breton. Her name is Michaela, and she's just letting us know that Cow Patty Bingo, which we talked about in a past episode, is not unique to the 1990s in Halifax. It turns out it's alive and well in Cape Breton.
Hey Jordan, it's Michaela from Cape Breton. I was just listening to your podcast on the CP Allen High School cow incident that happened in 1994. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I thought I'd share this. There is actually the same kind of contest that happens in Cape Breton in a field in Sydney once a year every August, and the proceeds go towards a scholarship fund. People can buy a grid square of the land for like $5. And anyway, on the day of, everybody goes to the field, they mark off the field in a grid, and they let a cow roam loose. And wherever the cow does its business, if it does it on your square, then you win a certain amount of the money, and the rest goes to local scholarships. And I believe this has been happening since the early 2000s. So, yeah, just a cool tidbit. Anyway, thanks so much. Love listening to your episodes.
This seems to be a bit more controlled. It's out in a field somewhere, not on the school grounds of a high school.
Yeah, I think we need to go and witness this for ourselves in August. I think you and I need to go and participate in Cow Patty Bingo in Sydney.
So, I have a feeling it's not that exciting when the cow doesn't get loose. Like, do you just stand around for like 4 hours while you wait for the cow? Like, did it do its business? No? Okay, let's see.
I don't know. We'll never know unless we try it. And I think at this point in time, we've talked about Cow Patty Bingo a lot on this show. And
okay, yeah, that's a good point.
I think we owe it to the listeners for us to put boots on the ground and go and participate in Cow Patty Bingo ourselves.
I like the way you think. You want to bring this to the next level? I'm in. You know what else we owe to our listeners is updates on past stories. When appropriate, when relevant major updates happen, we should talk about it. Several weeks ago, we talked about the Regina, Saskatchewan family who discovered they had a case of unopened 1979 OPG hockey cards and they were being sent to auction. Well, I will tell you, Aaron, the auction just ended, and the result of the auction, like the discovery itself, is one for the history books.
Wow.
It's the 1979-80 season of O-Pee-Chee hockey cards with 768 packages inside. It was found by a family in Regina clearing out this home office. They didn't know they had it.
Fresh as they come.
The family has chosen not to go public, but the auction house that sold the 16 boxes
Awesome.
says the family had a viewing party Saturday, watching as the bidding went past $5 million.
We were texting them throughout the entire night, and they're floored.
This is Wayne Gretzky in Edmonton.
Now, what makes the box so valuable is that in the 79-80 season, a certain hockey legend started rewriting the record book. Wayne Gretzky was the league MVP his rookie season. Well, a Gretzky rookie card can be worth more than its weight in gold. In mint condition, they average about $150,000. In what the industry calls gem mint condition, they can sell for millions. So how about the newly discovered boxes?
If you open up this entire case, you should get somewhere between 25 and 30 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards.
Are you surprised at all to hear that auction surpassed the $5 million mark?
I'm not surprised at all. In fact, I think it should go for more. Like, don't you?
I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot. Oddly enough, this story has just been in my mind. So, yeah, there must be. I would like to know more about who bought them. Like, of course, I can understand why the family selling them doesn't want to go public because they now have, $5 million. But the people who buy them, I wonder if it's like a person, a group of people. Is it a company? It could even be, some random card shop or something. Be interesting to know. Either way, I think that's a cool story. I'm glad that that discovery was made in Regina here in Canada. And I'm glad that family got $5 million out of it. Good for them.
And the people that bought the box may never open it either. They may just sit on that box. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think with collectibles, the value will slowly go up, but eventually, like the people who love Wayne Gretzky and he's of their era, they're eventually going to like get old and die off. And then people like are going to be like, let's say like Bobby Orr, which would have been like a great hockey player from the era before Wayne Gretzky. I would like to see how the value of his rookie card rose and fell over the years, because I think the generation that would have been big fans of Bobby Orr, most of them are probably really old or dead or something.
Yeah, but there are certain players that, that span the test of time. Yeah. And like, look at like Babe Ruth, for example. Like Babe Ruth is so many generations ago, but if you had a piece of Babe Ruth memorabilia today, it would be worth a fortune, I assume.
Yeah. That's a good point. Anyway, let's get to it. We got to keep Canada weird tonight. We have some fantastic stories. Actually, some are fantastic, some are awful. The way I put this together in my head is, again, I like to work in themes. We have themes that involve travel because the Lost Ashes, the Horse Lady, and the Dorm Room Squatter indirectly involve travel. And then we have some sex because we have Toronto's sex trickster. Do you want to like maybe start with travel and then like end with sex? We'll join the Mile High Club.
Yeah, the sex thing could be very loosely related to travel. Like they had, well, I mean, we haven't talked about the story yet, but I think they traveled emotionally in that story. So
I think you often do in sex. I've read in 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
it seems.
Yeah, I've had some
moving.
friends in elementary school tell me about when I was in elementary school, tell me about sex, and that's all I really know about it.
Okay, let's move on here. Let's start off slow. Let's get into the story of. No, let's not start off slow. Let's jump right in. I'm too excited for this one. Let's hear the story of the dorm room squatter / dropout. This story involves travel because it involves a flight school in BC that is taking a past student to court who's refusing to leave their student dormitories more than 2 years after he dropped out. I don't know if this is a statement about the housing crisis or if this guy's just out of his mind, but here it comes.
Is this you?
Yeah.
Saif Alderain signed a student accommodation agreement to rent a suite in this home in June 2021 before enrolling in flight classes. According to the Canadian Flight Centre, which alleges he dropped out of school a week later but continued to occupy his dorm unit.
This is definitely an unprecedented situation for us.
2.5 years later, the flight school is going to court to have Saif Alderain evicted. The Residential Tenancy Act does not apply to living accommodation owned or operated by educational institutions, and the Canadian Flight Centre says their former student has gone rogue.
In this case, we tried to talk to the person, but eventually dragged out, and the person was not just refusing to leave, but almost barricade himself.
The BC Supreme Court petition alleges Saif Alderain has attempted to deny others access to the dormitories. On one occasion, an employee discovered he had tampered with locks operating 2 outdoor access doors connected to the suite. Batteries had allegedly been removed from the locks, making them inoperable.
They claim that you won't leave your suite and that you've dropped out of school.
To take video.
Reached Thursday, Saif Alderain declined to comment on his housing situation.
They have a case against me. Let it be in the court.
Do you plan to stay here?
The final case will be in the court.
He's probably trying to hang on to cheap rent, but again, it's not residential tenancy, it's reserved for the students of our school.
Anna Serbanenko says Saif Alderain is paying about $700 to $800 a month, but they don't always receive full payments.
It has been difficult, and because the situation has dragged out for so long, so hopefully it will be resolved soon.
That is a nightmare, and it seems like in the story they're trying to get this guy to court because they can't go to the tenancy bureau or whatever because it's not like a typical rental agreement. But it seems like because of that, because the Tenancy Act and all this stuff isn't involved, you'd think they'd have an easier time getting him out of there. Like if you were squatting in an office building or something, you'd think they could just call the cops and get you out of there. Where if you're renting an apartment, there's this whole thing where there's like a hearing and you have to give a certain amount of notice and all this stuff. This is a nightmare.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. It reminds me a bit of that story we covered. I don't know, maybe it was last year or a number of months ago, where there was the gentleman who owned the house, and his mother, I think, lived in the main level. And then there was an apartment upstairs that he had rented to a woman, but then this woman left and had just handed the keys over to her friend. And her friend just squatted there and had parties and wrecked the place. And there was nothing the guy could do to get him out of there. So he just had to kind of grin and bear it for a very long time. He couldn't just, this guy wasn't on the lease. This guy was never somebody that he had agreed to allow to live there. He was just literally squatting, and there was nothing the landlord could do to get him out. And this reminds me of that story. So even in this situation where there is no, regulation kind of governing this situation, you still just can't get rid of somebody who's not supposed to be there.
And that's shocking to me. Of course, I'm not a landlord or any of this stuff, but it just seems so unfair that this guy can do that. He's dropped out of school more than 2 years ago, still living in a dormitory style housing. You would think that would be a bit of a risk to the other students, for one. Like, just this random person is like squatting. I don't like the thought of that, and just everything about it is wrong. I wonder how long he even went to that school. I wonder if that was a part of the plan. Like, I can go to that school for a couple months, get $700 a month housing, and just stay there forever. Seems to be working.
Yeah, I don't know what his original motivation was. It's, for some reason, I had the impression that he dropped out almost right away, like after a week or two or something.
That's kind of the way the article made it sound, but I don't know for sure. But it's, I wonder if what it was he just drops out. He realizes, like, oh man, I'm not at school no more. I got to get an apartment. And then as he looks around, everything's, 3 times as much as what he's paying. So he's like, I'm going to wait this out. Now, 2 years later, I guess this is the hill you're dying on. And this could go on for another year. So,
yeah, it's going to court. You would think that you would just be able to call the police. The police would come and remove them from the property, and you'd be done with it.
I've never quite heard of this before. I've been in dorm rooms and such at, back in the day. The idea of squatting and staying after you're done school, I just never would have considered that to be an issue.
Well, imagine you live the rest of your life in your university dorm, just refusing to leave. It's like you're 70 years old and, you're still going to keggers and...
in a way, it'd be awesome. In a way, it would be horrible.
Yeah, but if you just refuse to leave, what are they going to do? Apparently, nothing.
Yeah, go on the news. So many things the appeal process and the escalation process involves contacting global news, CTV, CBC, and talking about it on the news and having a reporter come and ask them about it. And that's seems to be what's happening here. Maybe being on the news will scare this guy off, but we heard in the news clip he is waiting to hear what the courts decide before he determines any of his next steps.
I was surprised he came to the door. The news team shows up to the door of this residency, and he answered the door, and he wasn't saying much. He just kept saying, well, it'll be figured out in court, whatever. But why just not go to the door?
Yeah, I was surprised to see him on there answering questions, but yeah, I guess shame is maybe not his strong suit.
I guess not. I would like to know everything else that has shamed him in his life to bring him to this moment.
That was the story of a battle between the former student and the school. Let's hear another battle that involves travel in a way, not air travel. This is the story of the horse lady of High River and her partnership with the mayor. Her name is Shelby Opheim, and she was threatened with jail time if she continued to ride her horse on the streets of the southern Alberta town of High River. But after a series of run-ins with law enforcement, she found a powerful ally in the town's mayor. And together, they're fighting back.
Settlers began arriving here in the 1870s. Also arriving by horse 150 years later is Shelby Opheim, a proud member of High River's Western heritage.
I love my horses, yes. My auntie was a barrel racer, so I kind of got into it when I was younger. 3 cream, 2 sweetener, and a honey cruller donut for the horse.
She takes Charlie everywhere, even for coffee, to make him comfortable in different environments.
Bomb-proof. I can scream, I can yell, Stuff like this shouldn't scare them. So this makes them safe. When he goes to a home, nobody's getting hurt, and he's not going to go for me.
But about 6 months ago, Shelby and Charlie began running into trouble with the law.
They have pulled me over 6 times in the last 6 months. The last time was Tuesday, and they told me that I was no longer allowed to ride in town. I couldn't have horses here. I could be arrested and put in jail.
Townfolk didn't want any trouble, they said.
My biggest thing was I had concern for her with the traffic, and knowing horses are just animals, and they don't know what traffic is all the time.
So peace officers got legal advice and barred horses from the town. Horse feathers, said Shelby.
Our bylaw says that we can. Our High River page you can actually go on says horses are a mean of transportation. The only issue is they poop.
Tuesday, the mayor felt he had to step right into the middle of it.
Sometimes you got to clean up the mess afterwards, so that's what we're doing.
Turns out Shelby was right. Mayor Snodgrass says things got goofy when peace officers got legal advice without first going to council.
We're the town of High River. We're a small ag-based community. Shelby's more than welcome to ride her horse in through town. You respect the public, you respect the other drivers, you're doing it safely. But the other thing is the drivers in their vehicles need to be doing the exact same thing.
And that was that.
I will continue riding in town as long as I'm allowed to.
The two settled things the old-fashioned way with a handshake.
His first comment on this story is, I gotta say, I love that mayor. The way he handled that, this guy should be prime minister. Just this, it just makes sense. He just shows up, addresses the issue. You're allowed to ride that here. There's no law against it. You need to be careful and respectful of others. Other people on the road in their vehicles need to be respectful of you. They shake hands outside of a Tim Hortons. It's a very Canadian outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I can look at the look on your face tells me you have a different opinion.
I don't care for this woman.
What? I think she's great.
No,
I enjoy Shelby.
No, I find her, I got to be honest, I find her smug. I think that, to be honest, I think she's an instigator.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I think they picked the fight with her.
No. I think she was looking for it.
Really?
Oh yeah, she knew she couldn't do it. And she was out just flaunting her horse for everyone to see, going through drive-throughs of Tim Hortons of all places.
Good. That's a good
yeah,
point.
Yeah, I don't care for that either. And
I wonder, I thought that I was just, to interject here, I kind of suspected maybe the news put her up to going through the drive-through, because that is a good moment of news.
Oh, no. She does this all the time because she's like, I get a coffee for me, and I get this for that person, and I get a honey cruller for my horse. Because I'm an idiot.
Great impression.
Yeah. I can do whatever I want. And you know what the common theme in these stories are? It's not travel. It's vigilantes. People who are going against the law to basically do whatever they want, no matter what the authorities say about it. So this guy stays in this dorm, this room, when he's supposed to be going to flight school and he's not, but he wants to stay anyway, and he just does it, no matter what anybody tells him. And then this story here, this woman wants to ride.
Her name is Shelby. Her name is Shelby, and she's a nice person.
Right. No, you don't know her.
Go on.
No, you don't know her. I can read her. She's a jerk. I just know it. She wants to ride her horse wherever she wants. And nobody's going to tell her any different. And it's only a coincidence that the mayor just happens to agree with her.
It's not that he agrees with her. There is no law against it. So why can't you?
But if the police are telling her not to do it.
Oh, police never make mistakes. They always get things right.
Yeah, but maybe there's a reason. We live in modern society now. And we see a lot of issues with you riding your horse wherever you want.
Yeah.
Because she was...
jump on an e-bike like a regular person.
She was riding it right down the middle of the street. Did you see that in the clip? You think that's
that
okay?
Is true, yeah.
And then the horse is crap.
Was...
You think she's riding down the middle of the street, and her horse has explosive diarrhea, and it's just crap everywhere. You think she's getting off the horse all the time, every single time, stopping traffic so that she can get in the middle of the street and pick up all the crap from her horse and then getting back on. Do you know how disruptive that is to the regular flow of traffic?
Well, here's the thing. my thought is, why should she have to pick it up if it's just on the road? Different if it's in a parking lot or a drive-through.
No. It's people's tires are rolling in it. Their tires reek.
Who cares?
Your car is going to reek, man. That's going to cling to your tires for days. Like, that's awful. No, people will have to be cleaning their tires when they get home because they're covered in horse crap. Like, you know, the scene from Back to the Future when, like, you know, Biff is chasing Marty in the car in 1955, and Marty fashions the skateboard out of the thing that the little girl was riding, and he ends up like being chased to the point where he moves out of the way, and then Biff like slams into the cart filled with horse manure, and it spills all. That's what's going to be happening in this town because of this woman. That kind of a horse manure chaotic scene is going to be a weekly occurrence now, because now the mayor has said, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. And so now
everyone in the city is going to be getting horses.
Joe idiot with a horse who's going to come down and be like, oh, we can ride our horses wherever we want. This is great. This town is lawless now.
Wow, that could be the outcome. I don't know. This is an interesting story. I guess we'll see where it goes. But I think if Shelby can be respectful of the community, I don't imagine they're going to get a new bylaw on the books, because that's what it would take. It would take some kind of change in the town's bylaws or something to prohibit horses for use as transportation. One other thing before we get back into it, this was referred to as a egg. The mayor said, we're just a small egg town or something. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't catch that.
Okay, I think this. I don't know the town that this takes place in, but I think that the town is High River. I think the town's like economy is based on eggs.
Yeah, well, a horse can crush an egg pretty easily,
so they should get rid of them. Okay, it's going to destroy the town's economy, and the tires are going to stink.
Everyone's stinky tires when they're going to pick up broken eggs that the horse has stepped on. I don't know. This woman, just her attitude. I didn't care for her attitude, and just the way she talked to the camera, and the way she's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care.
Yeah, we're going to end disagreeing on this one, because I think she's all right.
No, I don't like her.
Let's move on to the final story related directly to travel. We're going to be moving. We go from a flight school to horseback. We're going to be now back to aviation. This is going to be related to lost luggage, but a pretty unique story of lost luggage, because there is a lot of lost luggage stories. In fact, it seems every time someone I know flies, they have a story to tell me about lost luggage. This is different, though. This involves a Brampton, Ontario family that recently took a trip to Jamaica to spread the ashes of their late brother. But, as typical, their luggage was misplaced. And so were the ashes.
The family was taking their brother's cremated remains to Jamaica for a service. They put them in a checked suitcase, but when they arrived, the luggage was missing and it's never been recovered.
It will be a miracle if we'll be able to get that luggage back, but we're still hoping.
Before Conroy passed, he had a final wish. He wanted his cremated ashes to be placed next to his mother's gravesite in Jamaica.
We should take some of his ash and put beside our mom.
A group of family members flew to Jamaica for a memorial service last March, but when they arrived, the checked suitcase that contained their brother's remains had gone missing. Without Conroy's ashes, the service didn't happen.
There was no body or more ashes for the service to take place. It was very, very sad, very depressing.
Charles says he phoned the airport in Jamaica, went there several times, and filled out a missing baggage form. When he returned to Canada the following month, he says he also contacted the airline, Air Canada, and was told when the suitcase was recovered, it would be sent to him. But it was never found.
The luggage is missing, and we've had no form of compensation or even kind words.
In a statement to CTV News, the airline said it was very unfortunate, but said while the family informed the airport, it only learned of the lost suitcase 3 months after it went missing, so it was not possible to track the suitcase or provide compensation. Air Canada added, cremated remains may be taken on board in your carry-on luggage, provided they are stored in a material that can be security screened. Charles feels he did provide Air Canada with the proper information and feels terrible he was not able to fulfill his brother's final wishes.
It let me feel bad, like I let him down with that.
And while you can't take cremated ashes on an airplane, for international travel, there may be different rules depending on the country. You should check to see if additional paperwork may be required.
At this point, I think for everybody involved in this, it's a lose-lose. They're lost.
Yeah, there's a lot of things lost in this story, but I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's sad to hear about the lost ashes, and a lot of it doesn't make sense, though. A lot of the
I feel the same way. A lot of the stories we hear about luggage being lost, it's often like, you know, a guitar was smashed. That's a common one, or like some expensive, valuable thing was mistreated in the whole process. But usually, like if you're flying with something valuable, like and it's small and valuable, or really important, like maybe medication or something, I wouldn't put that in. You wouldn't put that in your luggage. You'd put it in your carry-on, so that way you bring it with you and keep it close to you. I couldn't imagine getting on an airplane and putting cremated remains in the checked baggage.
Yeah, I couldn't either. Now they clarified at the end. I mean, Air Canada said as long as it's in a packaging that can pass through security and be checked, they can carry the ashes on with them in their carry-on. Mm-hmm. But then at the end of the news broadcast, it said, you know, Air Canada does allow it, but possibly not for international travel.
Yeah, I felt that. I noticed that as well. It seemed like maybe there was two different ways that, or two different kind of sets of rules for Air Canada versus international travel. But it must be a common thing. Like people would be bringing remains around the world. So that must be the kind of thing that comes up a lot. I can't imagine the airline would want the liability of having it checked.
No,
like in a checked bag.
I mean,
sad story.
The other option would have been to mail it, maybe.
Oh God, can't you trust
well,
that?
Who
That's
do you
also
trust? Who do you trust?
I'd want it in my
more?
pocket.
Yeah, I would too. Like, see, I don't know if they had any other barriers in terms of, because they were going on international, like they were flying to another country, right?
Yeah, Jamaica, which isn't in Canada.
Yeah. So maybe they were allowed to bring it on in Canada, but I don't know.
Could you not just sneak it? But I guess imagine you got caught at border services with like a pocket full of like gray powder in your pocket, and they're like, "What's that?" It's in your sock. And they're like, "What is this, sir?" You have to explain.
Well,
it's actually my brother.
It's enough of my brother to fit in a sock. The rest is at home.
Yeah, but then if you explained it, I think they get it. Like, I don't want to check it. Because if they lose it, and you know the way they are here, they lose stuff all the time. I didn't want to do that. They won't let me carry it on. I had to, put it in a balloon and swallow it or something. I watch a lot of those border patrol shows.
Oh, you do?
So I know how people
so the
get
balloon
stuff
is a common.
Yeah, and so is like taking luggage and hollowing out the bottom and like putting stuff down in there.
But would your dead brother, who's now in the form of ashes, rather be inside a lost piece of luggage or up your ass?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think there's more respect
the lost luggage
in the lost luggage than to be up your ass and then eventually making it
to
Jamaica.
True. That's
but
true.
I mean, you're not gonna be able to put all of them up there. I mean, there's a lot of ashes in there.
Yeah, but often when there is a lot of ashes when someone's cremated, but it gets divided up amongst people. Like, would they? I don't think they would have to take all. I don't know what he asked for in his last will and testament, but I don't know if he would have asked to have all of his ashes brought. But here's it, like, why not just like a little baggie or something that you could stick in your.
In your.
What about this? You remember? I think it was just 2 weeks ago. We heard the story of the people who wanted to get the money back from their grave plot because it was like a couple hours away, and it was the grave. They bought a grave plot next to their parents, but then they moved a couple hours away, and they didn't want it anymore. They weren't willing to drive like 2 hours to see their parents' graves. This guy's flying around the world to help his brother, get close to his mother.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
I think there's something to be said about family.
It makes those two people who were trying to get their money back on their grave plot look even more like jerks.
That's you're damn right. Speaking of jerks. And there's kind of a double entendre there. But speaking of jerks, let's get off on our next story. This story is about sex, and we don't go here often on Keep Canada Weird.
Yeah, because you and I, we don't know a lot about sex, you and I.
And I think we're going to learn enough about sex in this to tell me that I don't want to know anything else about it, because this is a very weird story. If you want to get on Keep Canada Weird as a topic involving sex, you really need to pull out all the stops. And this next one is a trip. Aaron, why don't you do the honors and read this story?
I am honored that you would bestow on me the opportunity to read a story about glory holes.
I called the story Toronto's Sex Trickster. Would you call it something different because I come up with the names of the stories just off the top of my head as I'm putting it together. What would you like? Can you think of a better name than Toronto's Sex Trickster?
Toronto.
Because there is a trick in this story.
There's a trick for sure. I mean, nothing off the top of my head, okay. which is kind of a bit of a play on words there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I will read the story. So on two separate occasions in 2020, Tony Saphir, is that how you say it?
That's how I'll say it, yeah.
So on two separate occasions in 2020, Tony Saphir tricked two men into believing they were talking to a woman online and invited them over to his Toronto home to have anonymous sex through a hole in a sheet hanging in a doorway. The ruse came to an end when the second man pulled the sheet down to find Saphir cowering on the ground in a black wig, and he was later arrested. Ontario Court Justice Kathy Moka convicted the 33-year-old of 2 counts of sexual assault, given that the victims had been misled about the identity of their sexual partner. On Friday, she sentenced him to 28 months in prison, 14 months for each count. He'll also be on the sex offenders registry for the next 10 years. The two victims believed they were talking online with a woman and were going over to her home for a glory hole scenario. That's what we should call this story, is just glory hole scenario.
Toronto's glory hole
scenario. Yeah. Okay. The answer is in the story.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that they give a bit of a explanation here.
Yeah, tell us.
So I'm going to start this sentence over again so we can get the full weight of their explanation. So here's how the professional journalists describe it. The two victims believed they were talking online with a woman and were going over to her home for a glory hole scenario. That is, a hole in a wall or other material through which people can engage in typically anonymous sex. Or other material. I love that.
Well, in this case, a sheet, so they had to be clear.
Bed sheet, yeah. So as instructed, the victims walked into the home and put their penises inside a hole in a sheet hanging in a doorway.
Wait, before we go any further, should I, if anyone has any kids in the room?
Oh, it's too late.
They've already heard too much, but get them out now before Aaron gets to the next part. So as instructed, the victims walked in the home and put their penises inside a hole in a sheet that was hanging in a doorway. What happened next?
Oh, then it gets really good. Oral sex was performed, and then it became penetration without warning, which both victims believed was anal.
Okay.
Mocha rejected Safir's testimony that the men were in fact communicating with a woman named Angela, who he said had access to his home. Oh boy. The judge concluded that Angela was a fictitious person created by Safir.
Obviously.
Yeah, of course. He pulled down the sheet and Safir was right there wearing a wig. His story is filled with holes. Safir.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, this whole story is going to be edited out of the podcast, I think, but we'll keep going because
no, let's keep going. I'm enjoying this, even if this isn't a podcast.
Even if it's just you and me sitting in a room alone,
reading this
article together, laughing to ourselves. Okay. In her sentencing decision Friday, Mocha found that there was no evidence of real remorse or appreciation of harm done on Safir's part, and that his offenses involved a fair degree of planning. He had to go out and buy the wig and stuff. So the method he used of the glory hole, using a wig, telling the victims they had to be quiet so he wouldn't have to speak to them, all helped to maintain the illusion that he created in his communications that the victims were engaging with a woman, the judge said. The two victims now question their judgment and feel self-doubt and guilt, Mocha said.
I bet.
As with most victims of sexual assault, they wonder if they are somehow at fault or what happened or could have done more to prevent it. They feel shame and are unable to confide in those close to them.
I like this next part. I'm excited for this.
The lawyer representing Safir, yes, I love this part too. The lawyer representing Safir has suggested that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic led to poor decision-making by Safir. But Mocha said there was no evidence of that.
Many people during the pandemic had difficulty making personal connections and were creative in how they dealt with it, the judge Mocha said.
Yeah, Mr. Safir is here because he committed criminal offenses that negated the ability of the victims to choose how and who they engaged with.
That is a roller coaster. I can't believe that happened.
Oh, it's wild.
So I guess we don't even need to suggest or theorize or speculate on what happened. First of all, there's no way this Angela person is fictitious. His idea, for him to go into court after being caught red-handed and say, there's this person, Angela, who has access. She did it all. It's like, no, they should throw the book at this guy. He's a deviant.
You should never trick anybody into a situation like that. And
they send him to the one place that he could never do something like this again, a male prison.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like he wanted to go to prison.
Yeah, he's like, yes.
Finally.
Only 24 months?
Finally, somebody took me to court over this. I've been doing this for so many years trying to get to prison, and nobody would charge me.
Here's the thing, this obviously it's some kind of kink that this guy has, which there's no shame in having a kink, but there is a ton of shame in the lack of consent the people that he's engaging with were able to give. Certainly there's a way that he can explore this dangerous side of his sexuality without tricking people on the internet. And if the tricking is what gets him excited, then that's a really big problem. Because if his kink is the dishonesty part of it, yeah, that's bad.
I think it is the dishonesty part of it that probably gets him off the most, because I'm sure he'd have no problem finding willing participants online that know who he is and know that he's a man in a wig and would show up to his whole cutted sheet and penetrate it. I don't know what to say here, but I'm sure he would find willing participants that are aware of all of the realities and are fine with that. But I think in this situation, it seems like it's the pulling the sheet over their eyes aspect of it that I think he enjoys the most.
Why do you think the second guy pulled the sheet down? Do you think he suspected something?
I'm sure there was probably some suspicion about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want to think about that. Then the second guy is the one who pulled the sheet down and saw him in a wig. I wonder how the first guy found out. I guess the second guy went to the police, and the police somehow figured out there was this other guy who was there, a couple nights earlier. Imagine getting that call.
Yeah. And if that is how, in fact, they ended up connecting with each other and both charging him. Like maybe they knew each other prior to this.
Maybe I don't know. I doubt they are going to speak publicly about this.
Yeah, that is an interesting aspect of it. I'd be curious to know how they. Yeah, like was it the way you said, or was it another way? I don't know.
Imagine getting that. The cops. Hello, this is the Toronto. My name is Constable whatever from the Toronto Police. Were you involved in a glory hole like scenario a few nights ago at an apartment building?
Yeah.
I would. I would think he would probably like no.
Oh, really?
Like what did I?
Well, what am I going to do?
My first thought would be like,
I would say, officer. Listen, even in the world of glory holes, honesty is always the best policy, and that goes for the person giving and receiving. That goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. So eventually I tell the cop, like, yes, I shouldn't have lied to you. That was me. I went there. Like, why? How do you know? And why are you calling me about
it? And then he says,
then they just say,
I have a glory hole. I want you to.
No, he would just say, like, that was a man pretending to be a woman. Do you want to press charges?
Okay. I don't know. This is a weird role play you and I are engaging in right now. I don't know what
my kink. This is my kink.
Yeah, well, you're kind of tricking me into it, so I don't want to participate anymore.
Just pretend you're the cop.
We've already said things that can't even air on this episode already. So you can have a fun time editing this show, once you get off the horn with me.
Anyway, shame on this. I'm going to call him a pervert because I think, and I'm not calling him a pervert because of this kink. I'm calling him a pervert for subjecting non-consenting people to his kink. Mm-hmm. Shame on you, buddy.
Yeah, anyway, I won't. I'm not going to comment any further on this story.
Let's just go out with a voice memo.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You remember Zach? I can't think of what state he's in. Zach is from, I think he's in somewhere southern. He's writing to, he's sending us a voice memo weighing in on the story that we talked about months ago about Jay's Chicken Shop in Glace Bay. That was the chicken shop in Glace Bay that made a post about, if you come to our restaurant and the employees are fighting, try to stop it. Basically was their post. And if you have to intervene in an employee fight, of course your meal will be free. It was something to that effect. Zach's commenting on that. Here it comes.
Hey, what's up, Jordan and Aaron? It's Zach from Pittsburgh. I was calling in because I heard the episode of Keep Canada Weird about the chicken place that seemed like they had a weird advertisement. And kind of seems like they just had some interior drama in that business and was letting everyone know about it. Weird, but it harkened me back to about a year ago or so. I take the bus into work and I see these billboards. And the billboards was for this law company called Morgan and Morgan. And they started out innocent enough. It was like Morgan and Morgan, the largest defense lawyers in the United States. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, cool, well, whatever, do your thing. And then the billboard went to Morgan and Morgan, size matters. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's great. I love it. But all right, you went for it there, little edgy. And then all of a sudden, they would start appearing with these pictures of the lawyers and stuff, and they would say, like, for the people. And I'm like, well, all right. So they ditched the whole edgy thing. And like a week later, it would look like someone went up there and freaking spray painted it. And spray painted over it. So instead of for the people, it would say fleece the people. I'm like, damn, someone is really mad at these dudes. I mean, and they had billboards all over town. And one was like fleece the people. The other one had like the one lawyer literally looking spray paint like he had a clown's head and a clown's nose. And I'm like, man, they really pissed somebody off. And then my one buddy on Facebook posted about the same time I started noticing that it looks like people are like spray painting these billboards. Because he did the exact same things. Like, people really hate these guys. And I'm like, oh, wait, all right. Yeah, so you saw this too? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, it's the same thing on the one downtown. So what it actually ended up being is this law office decided that it was a great idea that they would actually make billboards that looked like someone was spray painting their stuff and hating them for their advertisement. And I'm like, I get the whole idea of like, press is not bad, whether it's bad or good press. But in my mind, it's like that's self-defeating to me. Like you're putting billboards up with someone hating you to get people to notice you. I don't know. It made no sense. But hey, guys, love you and talk to you later.
Nowadays, if you want people's attention, you really need to like take a swing. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone take that approach, but I just think a lawyer going the way of like fleece the people, I think there'd be different ways they could do it. But
yeah, and in your lawyers, you want a bit more of a professional tone, I guess, than lawyers that are faking graffiti and creating an illusion of dissatisfaction in their advertising. And
yeah, but these are defense lawyers, and there's a bit of a difference there where a defense lawyer, like if I'm need someone to defend me, I want them to, know every trick in the book to get me out of it. Because there's a defense lawyer I saw a sign for they had their slogan was something like, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. It was something of that nature. So this is no worse than that.
Yeah. I like that one. Just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.
I think a lot of the stories we heard tonight tell us that a lot of what we see is not real. If an offer's too good to be true on the internet, maybe it's not real. I'm talking about the Glory Hole situation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. The Glory Hole. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to end it.
Yeah. The Glory Hole. Yep.
Just back to that.
Yeah, it's always back to the Glory Hole with you.
Let's wrap it up here. I've heard enough from you.
I've had enough with you.
Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
I'm going to wash my bed sheets and my hands tonight.
And
my everything.
And Jordan, until next time. You know what I'm not washing tonight? My car tires.
Because
there's no horses on my streets.
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird, but let us also call out to you for even greater support. If something weird happens in your part of the country, we want to hear about it. And if you have any thoughts, opinions, or theories on any of the stories we discussed tonight, we want to hear about that too. The best way to reach us is by sending a voice memo using the app built into nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We're excited to hear from you. Now, before we part here, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing an evening with me and with you, the listeners of Keep Canada Weird. A big shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who provides the intro and outro voiceovers for this series. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Melissa, Laura, and Ryan, thank you for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out here in a variety of ways. The best way is by listening on the premium feed. It costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of the show. But the premium feed also gives you the episodes 2 days early, gives them to you ad-free, and gives you access to a full back catalog of Nighttime and Keep Canada Weird episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support this show by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting all your friends know why they should listen. We appreciate your support in growing this. Now, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.